Mr. President, for over 72 years, India has illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir against the wishes of the Kashmiri people and in blatant violation of the resolutions of the Security Council and indeed its own commitments to the people of Kashmir. On 5th August last year, India illegally and unilaterally sought to change the status of the occupied territories and deployed additional troops, bringing the total number to 900,000, to impose a military siege on 8 million Kashmiris. All Kashmiri political leaders were incarcerated. About 13,000 Kashmiri youth were abducted and thousands tortured. A complete curfew was imposed, accompanied by a total communications blackout. Indian occupation forces have used brute force, including pellet guns against peaceful protesters, imposed collective punishments, including the destruction of entire neighborhoods, and extrajudicially murdered hundreds of innocent young Kashmiris in fake encounters, refusing even to hand over their bodies for burial. The Kashmiri media and those daring to raise their voice are being systematically harassed and intimidated through the use of draconian laws. All of this is well documented in the reports of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, communications from the Special Rapporteurs of Human Rights Council, statements from human rights and civil society organizations. The international community must investigate these grave violations and prosecute the Indian civil and military personnel involved in state terrorism and serious crimes against humanity being perpetrated, I'm sad to say, with complete impunity. The objective of this brutal campaign is to impose what the RSS-BJP regime has itself called the final solution for Jammu and Kashmir. To this end, the military siege is being followed by moves to change the demographic structure of the occupied territory. This is an attempt to obliterate the distinct Kashmiri identity in order to effect the outcome of a plebiscite envisaged in the UN Security Council resolutions. This action is in violation of the UN Charter, Council resolutions, and international law, particularly the 4th Geneva Convention. Changing demographic structure of occupied territory is a war crime. Mr. President, the brave Kashmiri people will never submit to Indian occupation and oppression. Their struggle is indigenous. They are fighting for a just cause, and generation after generation have laid down their lives to rid themselves of Indian occupation. The government and people of Pakistan are committed to standing by and supporting the Kashmiri brothers and sisters in the legitimate struggle for self-determination. Mr. President, in order to divert attention from its illegal actions and atrocities in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, India is playing a dangerous game of upping the military ante against Pakistan in a nuclearized environment. Despite constant Indian provocations and ceasefire violations along the line of control and the working boundary, targeting innocent civilians, Pakistan has exercised maximum restraint. We have consistently sensitized the world community about a false flag operation and another ill-conceived misadventure by India. My parents, Mr. President, were born in the colonial India, and I was the first generation that grew up in an independent Pakistan. I want to make it clear that any attempt by the fascist, totalitarian, RSS-led Indian government to aggress against Pakistan will be met by a nation that will fight for its freedom to the end. Mr. President, there will be no durable peace and stability in South Asia until the Jammu and Kashmir dispute is resolved on the basis of international legitimacy. Kashmir has been rightly described as a nuclear flashpoint. The Security Council must prevent a disaster conflict and secure the implementation of its own resolutions, as it did in the case of East Timor. The Council has considered the situation in Jammu and Kashmir 3 times in the past year. It must take appropriate enforcement actions. It must also take steps to protect the Kashmiris from an impending genocide by India. Pakistan has always called for a peaceful solution. To this end, India must rescind. To reach this end, India must rescind the measures it has instituted since 5th August 2019, end its military siege and other gross human rights violation, and agree to resolve the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, and of course, the wishes of the people of Kashmir. Mr. President, Pakistan's desire for peace in our region is also manifest in our efforts to promote a political solution in Afghanistan. I have consistently maintained over the past 2 decades that there is no military solution to the conflict in Afghanistan. The only way forward was and is a political settlement, which involves the full spectrum of Afghanistan's political actors. Pakistan fully facilitated the process that culminated in the US-Taliban peace agreement on 29 February 2020. Pakistan is deeply gratified that it has fulfilled its part of the responsibility. The Afghan leaders must now seize this historic opportunity to achieve reconciliation and restore peace in the war-torn country. Through the intra-Afghan negotiations that commenced on 12th of September, they must work out an inclusive, broad-based, and comprehensive political settlement. The process must be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned, and without any interference or outside influence. Early return of Afghan refugees must be part of this political solution. After almost 2 decades of war, it is imperative not to allow spoilers within and outside Afghanistan to subvert the peace process. Peace and stability in Afghanistan will open new opportunities for development and regional connectivity. Mr. President, Palestine remains a festering wound. A just and lasting settlement is indispensable for the Middle East and actually the world. Illegal annexations of Palestinian territory, the building of illegal settlements, and the imposition of inhuman living conditions on the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza, cannot bring peace to a troubled region. Pakistan continues to support a 2-state solution in line with the UN General Assembly and Security Council resolutions within the international agreed parameters, and they are pre-1967 borders and Al-Quds Al-Sharif as the capital of a united, contiguous and independent Palestinian state. Mr. President, the United Nations remains the best legitimate avenue for collective action in managing international conflicts, fostering peace and security, promoting equitable development and addressing global problems. I urge the Secretary General to take the lead in preventing global conflicts. He should convene summit-level meetings to address regional hotspots and resolve outstanding disputes. The United Nations should be made fully responsive to the challenges of our times. A comprehensive reform of the United Nations, including the Security Council, is essential to promote greater democracy, accountability, transparency, and efficiency. Pakistan will continue to participate actively in this process and endeavor with other member states to build a world where conflict is outlawed and equitable prosperity for all pursued in conditions of peace and security.